Grandpa, run! My granddaughter's scream broke the peace of our family cruise. Her eyes, wide with fear, begged me to leave the luxurious liner we had boarded together. I decided to listen, and it saved my life. You won't believe what my son wanted to do. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. My hands trembled slightly as I reached for the coffee pot. Not from age, mind you. From something I couldn't quite name yet. The kitchen felt peaceful in that golden afternoon light, everything in its proper place. 43 years I'd lived in this house, and I still loved these quiet moments. The coffee percolated with its familiar rhythm while I arranged my favorite mug on the granite counter. Simple pleasures had become more precious since retirement. Then the phone rang. Derek's name glowed on the caller ID. My grip tightened around the ceramic handle before I even answered. "Hey, Dad." His voice carried that particular tone, the one he'd used since childhood when he wanted something expensive. "Hello, son." I kept my voice neutral, though my stomach was already nodding. "How are things?" "Well, that's why I'm calling." Derek cleared his throat, and I could picture him pacing in his cluttered living room. "We need $8,000 for the cruise tickets. Everything's already booked. Deposits paid. The travel agent needs the rest by Monday." I set my coffee mug down harder than necessary. A few drops splashed onto the counter. "Son, you're 42 years old. A grown man with a job and a family. Pay for your own vacation." "How can you say that?" His voice shot up an octave, that familiar whine creeping in. "We're your family. This is supposed to be a celebration. Your retirement, quality time together, and you're worried about money?" I walked to the living room window, staring out at my carefully maintained lawn. Mrs. Henderson next door was pruning her roses. Normal people doing normal things while my son demanded thousands of dollars, like it was pocket change. "I'll pay for Lily's ticket," I said firmly. "She's 10 years old. She shouldn't suffer because her parents can't budget properly." "Dad, come on." Now he sounded desperate, which somehow made it worse. "We're talking about a family trip here. 7 days in the Caribbean. When's the next time we'll all be together like this? Derek, I've helped you more times than I can count. The house down payment, your wedding, that car repair last year. When does it end? This is different. This is about family memories, about—" "No." The word came out sharper than I intended. "This is about you expecting me to fund your lifestyle while you spend money you don't have. I'll transfer Lily's portion to the travel agent directly. You and Evelyn figure out your own situation." The silence stretched long enough that I wondered if he'd hung up. "Fine," he finally said, his voice cold as winter. "But don't blame me when this ruins everything. Don't blame me when Lily asks why Grandpa wouldn't let her parents come on the family cruise." The dial tone buzzed in my ear. I stood there holding the dead phone, staring at it like it might explain how my generous, loving son had become this manipulative stranger. The afternoon sunlight still streamed through the kitchen window, but something fundamental had shifted. This wasn't just another request for help. This felt different, more desperate, more demanding, and somehow I knew he wouldn't just drop it. The sound of car doors slamming made me look up from my dinner plate. Through the dining room window, I could see Derek's dented minivan in my driveway, engine still ticking as it cooled. My stomach dropped. They were coming to finish what the phone call had started. I heard Derek's key in the front door, the spare I'd given him years ago when Lily was born, back when trust came easier. The lock clicked, and they walked in without knocking. No courtesy, no respect for boundaries, just entitled invasion of my private space. "Frank, we need to talk." Evelyn appeared first, her makeup slightly smudged, hands trembling just enough to be noticeable. She'd been crying, or wanted me to think she had. Derek followed behind her, filling my doorway with his bulk. At 42, he still had the broad shoulders from his college football days, though his gut had expanded considerably. He didn't sit. Instead, he paced around my living room like he owned it, picking up family photos and setting them down carelessly. "Please, sit down." I gestured toward the chairs, trying to maintain some semblance of normal hospitality, even as they violated every boundary I had. Evelyn perched on the edge of my leather armchair, ready to spring up at any moment. Her designer purse, probably cost more than most people's car payments, clutched in her lap like a shield. "Frank, I need you to understand something." Her voice cracked perfectly, tears gathering in her blue eyes. "We're not asking for vacation money. We're drowning." Derek stopped pacing directly in front of my couch, towering over me as I sat. The power dynamic was clear and intentional. "We owe $50,000, Evelyn continued, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue she'd pulled from nowhere. "Credit cards, loans, the mortgage second. Derek's company cut his commission structure last year, and we got behind." 50,000. The number hit me like a physical blow. "How did you let it get that bad?" I asked, though part of me already knew. The expensive restaurants, the designer clothes, the luxury SUV they'd traded in last month. "It doesn't matter how," Derek snapped, his voice sharp. "What matters is fixing it. We can consolidate everything with a personal loan, but we need collateral. Your signature on the application. And 8,000 for the cruise fits into this plan, how exactly?" Derek's jaw tightened. "Because we need this trip, Dad. As a family. To show Lily that everything's okay, that we're not falling apart. She's been asking questions about why Mommy cries so much." Evelyn's sob was perfectly timed. "Besides," Derek added, his voice dropping lower, more threatening, "if we can't afford to go, maybe Lily should stay home too. Wouldn't want her to feel guilty about going on vacation while her parents lose their house." The manipulation was so blatant, so cruel, that for a moment I couldn't speak, using my granddaughter as a weapon against me. "Don't you dare," I said quietly, "use that little girl as leverage." But Derek had already won, and we all knew it. I couldn't bear the thought of Lily suffering because of her parents' failures, couldn't stand the idea of her missing out on something that should be pure joy. I walked across the room to my desk, each step feeling like surrender. The checkbook sat in the top drawer where it always did. My hand shook slightly as I wrote out the amount, $8,000. "This is the absolute last time," I said as I tore off the check. "Do you understand me? The last time I bail you out." Derek snatched the check before I'd finished speaking, barely glancing at the amount before folding it into his wallet. "Thanks, Dad. Really, this means everything." But he was already walking toward the door, Evelyn close behind him. No gratitude, no genuine relief, just the satisfaction of getting what they'd come for. The front door closed behind them with a soft click. I stood alone in my living room, staring at the empty checkbook in my hands. The house felt violated, contaminated by their desperation and my own weakness. Outside, Derek's minivan roared to life and pulled away. $8,000 for 7 days at sea with people who saw me as nothing more than an ATM with a pulse. Each step up the stairs felt heavier than usual. Not from physical exhaustion, though my legs certainly felt the weight of 68 years more acutely tonight. The emotional toll of the day's confrontations had settled into my bones like winter cold. I pulled my old leather suitcase from the bedroom closet, the one Margaret and I had used for our honeymoon in Italy 45 years ago. The brass clasps still worked perfectly, though the leather showed its age in gentle creases and worn corners. Packing had always been methodical for me. Shirts folded just so, pants hung to avoid wrinkles, toiletries arranged by size. Tonight, though, my hands moved automatically while my mind wandered down darker paths. When had Derek become so entitled? When had my help transformed from generous assistance into expected tribute? I opened my dresser drawer to grab socks and accidentally pulled out the file folder underneath, the one where I kept important financial documents. Bank statements and receipts scattered across my bed like evidence of some crime. The house down payment receipt stared up at me. $200,000, 5 years ago when Derek claimed he'd found the perfect starter home for his family. "Just need help with the down payment, Dad. We'll handle the monthly payments ourselves." Underneath that, the wedding expenses, $30,000 for what Evelyn called a modest ceremony at the country club, another $15,000 for their honeymoon in France. "We want to start our marriage right," Derek had explained. "No stress, no debt hanging over us." Car repair bills, $8,000, when Derek's transmission died 3 years ago. "I can't get to work without a car, Dad. I'll pay you back as soon as the insurance check comes through." The insurance check never came. I sat on the edge of my bed, surrounded by paper trails of my own foolishness. 27 years of emergencies and just this once requests. Each one seemed reasonable at the time, Each one came with promises of repayment that never materialized. My calculator sat on the nightstand. Old habit from my business days. Always double-check the numbers. I punched in figures with growing disbelief. $200,000, $30,000, $15,000, $8,000. Smaller amounts over the years. Car insurance, medical bills, Christmas gifts that turned into Christmas loans. The total climbed past $280,000, nearly $300,000 over Derek's adult life. The numbers stared back at me from the calculator's green display, each digit a reminder of my own weakness. I'd worked 40 years building that nest egg, saved and invested and planned for retirement, only to watch my son treat it like his personal piggy bank. A photograph of Lily had fallen from the folder. Last Christmas morning, her gap-toothed smile bright as she opened presents. She'd hugged me so tight that day, whispered, "I love you, Grandpa," in my ear while Derek and Evelyn argued about whose turn it was to do dishes. That little girl deserved better than parents who used her as emotional leverage. She deserved a grandfather strong enough to protect her from their dysfunction, even if it meant protecting her from them. I gathered the documents and returned them to the folder, then resumed packing with renewed purpose. 7 days at sea lay ahead. 7 days with my granddaughter, watching her discover the wonder of ocean sunsets and tropical islands. Whatever else happened on that cruise, I was determined to give Lily memories worth treasuring, the kind of memories every child deserved, free from the weight of adult problems and parental failures. The alarm clock on my nightstand glowed, 9:47 p.m. Early departure tomorrow meant early sleep tonight. I set the alarm for 6 a.m. and turned off the bedside lamp. Tomorrow, despite everything, would bring the joy of seeing Lily's excitement as we boarded that magnificent ship. When I sat down in the cramped middle seat of Derek's car the next day to get to the port, it felt like a cage, but Lily's presence next to me made it bearable. She was waiting on the porch when Derek's damaged minivan pulled into my driveway, holding a worn paperback copy of The Secret Garden and practically trembling with excitement. "Grandpa, look what I brought to read on the ship." She held up the book, its pages soft from countless readings. "Frances Hodgson Burnett is my favorite author. Do you think they have a library on board?" "I'm sure they do, sweetheart." I helped her adjust the seatbelt around her small frame, careful not to meet Derek's eyes in the rearview mirror. The tension from last night's confrontation still crackled between us, like electricity before a storm. Evelyn twisted in the passenger seat, adjusting her mirror to watch our interaction. Her manicured fingernails tapped against the armrest in an irritating rhythm. Every few seconds, she'd catch my eye in the reflection and offer a cold smile that never reached her carefully made-up features. "Look, Grandpa," Lily pressed her face against the window as we merged onto the highway. "The buildings are getting taller. It's like we're driving into a forest made of glass and steel." Her wonder was infectious. Despite everything, I found myself smiling genuinely, for the first time since Derek's phone call yesterday. Children see magic where adults see only concrete and commerce. "That's Manhattan, Princess. See that tall building with the pointy top? That's the Chrysler Building. It was built when my grandfather was young." "Your grandfather?" Lily's eyes widened. "That means my great-great-grandfather. Was he alive when dinosaurs roamed the earth?" "Not quite that old," I laughed, ruffling her dark hair. "But he did see the first automobiles driving down dirt roads." Traffic thickened as we approached Brooklyn. Derek's knuckles were white against the steering wheel, jaw muscle twitching every time someone cut us off. The weight of yesterday's $8,000 check seemed to press down on all of us differently. Burden for me, resentment for him, calculation for her. "Money can buy many things," Evelyn said suddenly, her voice sugar-sweet, but with razors underneath. "But it can't buy genuine affection, can it, Frank?" The comment hit its target perfectly. She wanted me to know that she saw through my relationship with Lily, wanted to plant seeds of doubt about my granddaughter's love. "I love Grandpa anyway," Lily's voice rang clear and indignant. "He's the best grandfather in the whole world, and money has nothing to do with it." My heart swelled with fierce protectiveness. This innocent child shouldn't have to defend our relationship against her own mother's jealousy. "That's right, sweetheart. You're my most precious treasure, worth more than all the gold in the world." Derek's grip tightened further on the wheel. In the mirror, I watched his expression darken as he realized his daughter's loyalty couldn't be manipulated or purchased. It simply existed, pure and unconditional. The salt smell of the harbor began filtering through the van's ventilation system. Seagulls wheeled overhead, crying their raucous songs. Lily bounced in her seat as massive cargo cranes came into view, followed by the first glimpse of cruise ship smokestacks, rising like white towers against the morning sky. "Is that our ship, Grandpa? Is that the Ocean Majesty?" "Not yet, Princess, but we're close now." Derek's knuckles remained bone white against the black steering wheel, while beside me my granddaughter continued chattering about the approaching maritime wonderland. The contrast between her pure joy and his barely contained anger made my chest tight with foreboding. The relief of stepping out of that suffocating minivan felt like emerging from a cave into sunlight. My legs appreciated the stretch after 90 minutes of tension and cramped positioning. Around us, the cruise terminal buzzed with excited families, wheeling luggage and pointing cameras at everything. But nothing could have prepared me for the first glimpse of the Ocean Majesty through the terminal's floor-to-ceiling windows. "Sweet mother of pearl," I whispered, borrowing one of my father's favorite expressions. The ship rose 15 stories above the harbor, its white hull gleaming like fresh snow against the blue April sky. Elegant balconies dotted its length like jewelry on a grand dame's dress. At the top, multiple swimming pools sparkled in the morning sun while tiny figures moved about the decks. "Grandpa, it's not a ship. It's a floating palace." Lily grabbed my hand, her paperback forgotten in her other grip. "How many people can fit on something that enormous?" 3,000 passengers, according to the brochure. I squeezed her small fingers. "Plus 1,500 crew members to take care of everyone." Derek and Evelyn approached with our luggage, their expressions mixing awe with something harder to define. Derek's eyes kept calculating costs, the marble lobby visible through the windows, the uniformed staff greeting passengers, the obvious luxury of every detail. The security checkpoint separated us briefly into different lines. I watched Lily bounce impatiently while a guard checked her small backpack, her excitement so pure it made my heart ache. When had I last felt such uncomplicated joy about anything? "Welcome aboard the Ocean Majesty," Captain Johnson's voice echoed through the terminal speakers. "We're preparing for a magnificent 7-day journey to the Caribbean. All passengers should be aboard by 11:30 for our noon departure." The gangway stretched ahead of us like a bridge between worlds. On one side, the familiar chaos of New York Harbor, car horns, diesel fumes, concrete. On the other, a floating sanctuary of luxury and leisure. Our shoes rang against the metal walkway as we crossed over the harbor water. Lily held my hand tightly, not from fear, but from overwhelming excitement. The ocean breeze carried salt and possibility. "Mr. Miller?" A crisp steward in brilliant white uniform greeted us at the entrance. His name tag read, "Roberto." "Frank Miller, party of 4? "That's correct." "Wonderful. Mr. Frank Miller, you have the Ocean View Suite on Deck 8, starboard side. Mr. Derek Miller, your interior stateroom is on Deck 5. He handed us different colored key cards. "The elevator banks are clearly marked. Would you like assistance finding your accommodations?" The class distinction was subtle but unmistakable. Frank's suite versus Derek's interior cabin. Premium accommodations I'd insisted on paying for versus the standard rate. That was all Derek's budget could manage, even with my help. "We can find our way," Derek said stiffly, pocketing his plain white keycard while I held the gold-edged one. The elevator ride separated us temporarily. Different floors, different worlds within this floating city. When Lily and I reached Deck 8, she gasped at the wide corridors, the artwork, the subtle luxury of everything from the carpet to the ceiling fixtures. My suite door opened onto a sitting area with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor, but the real treasure was the private balcony. "Grandpa, come see this." Lily had discovered the sliding door and stepped outside. "We can see the whole harbor from here. Look, there's the Statue of Liberty waving at us." I joined her on the narrow balcony, breathing in the salt air and watching harbor traffic move around us like a choreographed dance. Tugboats guided cargo vessels while smaller craft darted between the giants. In the distance, Lady Liberty raised her torch toward clouds that looked painted against the blue sky. For the first time since Derek's phone call yesterday afternoon, I felt genuinely peaceful. Here, surrounded by ocean and possibility, the weight of family drama seemed lighter. The ship's horn sounded a long, deep note that vibrated through the deck beneath our feet. The ship's horn sounded again as I stood on my private balcony, watching Manhattan's skyline slowly shrink behind us. The Statue of Liberty passed close enough that I could make out individual details on her copper surface, tourists tiny as ants gathering at her base. This was what peace felt like. I'd almost forgotten. The main dining room at lunch buzzed with the excited chatter of 3,000 passengers beginning their adventure. Families occupied tables around us, grandparents with grandchildren, parents juggling toddlers, elderly couples sharing quiet conversations over white wine. Normal people enjoying normal vacations without the undercurrent of financial manipulation that poisoned every interaction with my son. "Mr. Miller, would you care for our signature welcome cocktail?" The waiter appeared beside my table with a tray of colorful drinks garnished with tiny umbrellas. "It's complimentary with your sweet package." "Thank you, but I'm enjoying the views just fine." I gestured toward the floor-to-ceiling windows where the New Jersey coastline rolled past like a painted backdrop. "Perhaps later." Lily had discovered the kids' club after lunch, a wonderland of video games, arts and crafts stations, and supervised activities that left her practically speechless with joy. I watched through the observation window as she introduced herself to other children with the fearless confidence only 10-year-olds possess. "Can we go swimming after we watch the magician show?" she asked when she found me reading in the ship's library later that afternoon. "They have 3 different pools, Grandpa. One has a water slide shaped like a sea serpent." "Of course, Princess. This whole week is about making you happy." And for the first time in months, I was actually enjoying a book. The library's leather chairs faced panoramic ocean views, and the gentle sway of the ship created a hypnotic rhythm that made reading feel like meditation. No phone calls demanding money, no guilt trips about family obligations, just the endless horizon and a well-crafted mystery novel. The pool deck in late afternoon was a revelation. Lily splashed in the shallow end while I supervised from a cushioned deck chair, marveling at the engineering required to create this floating resort. Multiple levels of pools, hot tubs, and lounging areas stretched across the ship's width, all while we moved through Atlantic swells at 23 knots. "Sir, afternoon tea service is available on the sky deck," a crew member informed me as Lily practiced her backstroke. "Fresh scones, finger sandwiches, and ocean views you won't believe." The civilized luxury of afternoon tea felt like stepping back into a gentler era. Delicate china cups, silver service, and watercress sandwiches cut into perfect triangles, while the ocean stretched endlessly in every direction. I hadn't realized how much stress I'd been carrying until it began lifting from my shoulders like morning fog. "Grandpa, guess what I learned today?" Lily burst into the tea service area, still damp from the pool and glowing with excitement. "They have a rock climbing wall that goes up 6 stories, and tonight there's a Broadway show in the theater, and tomorrow we can go snorkeling in Bermuda." Her enthusiasm was infectious. Despite everything, Derek's manipulation, Evelyn's jealousy, the financial pressure that never seemed to end, this moment was perfect. My granddaughter's joy, the peaceful rhythm of the ship, the promise of a week focused entirely on creating happy memories. As evening approached, I helped Lily pick out clothes for dinner, while her parents prepared in their own cabins somewhere below. The formal dining room required resort casual attire, which gave Lily an excuse to wear the sundress her grandmother had bought her last summer. "Do I look fancy enough for a real ship's dining room, Grandpa?" "You look like a princess, sweetheart. The most beautiful princess on the 7 seas." After tucking Lily into her bunk bed in her parents' cabin and saying goodnight to Derek and Evelyn with strained politeness, I walked back to my suite, feeling genuinely grateful. Tomorrow we'd wake up in Bermuda's crystal blue waters. Lily would snorkel for the first time, see tropical fish, collect shells on pink sand beaches. The week stretched ahead like a gift. 7 days of pure joy with my granddaughter before returning to the complicated realities of family and finances. The sunset painted the Atlantic in shades of coral and gold as I settled deeper into my deck chair, finally allowing myself to truly relax. The mystery novel lay open in my lap, while gentle ocean swells rocked the massive ship like a cradle. Other passengers strolled past, pointing cameras at the horizon where the sun touched the water. This was peace. This was what I'd worked 40 years to earn. Then I heard running footsteps. "Grandpa!" Lily's voice cracked with panic as she burst onto the upper deck, her face flushed and tear-streaked. She stumbled between deck chairs, frantically scanning the crowd until her eyes found mine. My book tumbled to the deck as I stood, immediately alarmed by her terror. In 10 years, I'd never seen my granddaughter look so frightened. "Princess, what's wrong?" I pulled her close, feeling her small body trembling against my chest. "What happened?" She glanced over her shoulder toward the ship's interior, then whispered urgently in my ear, "We have to get away from here. Right now, Grandpa. They're going to hurt you tonight." My blood went cold. "Who's going to hurt me? Lily, you need to tell me exactly what you heard." "Mom and Dad." Her voice was barely audible, muffled against my shoulder. I went back to get my book from their room, and I heard them talking through the bathroom door. They said they're going to put something in your drink at dinner, something to make you sleepy. And then... She couldn't finish the sentence, but her meaning hit me like a physical blow. "Are you absolutely certain about what you heard?" My voice stayed calm even as my mind reeled with the impossibility of it. My own son, planning to murder me. "They said you'd be drowsy, and they'd take you up to the deck for fresh air. But really, they were going to push you over the railing when nobody was looking." The words rushed out of her in a terrified whisper. "They said it would look like an accident, an old man losing his balance." The deck seemed to tilt beneath my feet, though I knew the ship was steady. Derek and Evelyn, my son and his wife, planning my death with the casual efficiency of planning a grocery list. "They mentioned timing," Lily continued, still looking around fearfully. "Something about the dinner seating and how the deck patrol changes shifts at 9:30. The level of detail chilled me. This wasn't an impulsive decision born of desperation. They'd researched, planned, calculated the best way to kill me and inherit my money. "Listen to me carefully, Princess." I held her shoulders, looking directly into her frightened eyes. "You did exactly the right thing telling me. You're incredibly brave, and now we're going to handle this together. But what if they see us talking? What if they know I heard them? They won't. We're going to be very smart about this." My mind was already racing through possibilities. "First, you're going to the kids' club for movie night. Stay there until I come get you. Don't go back to their cabin alone." "What about you, Grandpa? What if they try to give you the drink anyway?" "Let me worry about that." I managed what I hoped was a reassuring smile, though inside I felt like I was falling through empty space. Sometimes, the best way to catch someone in a trap is to let them think it's working. The ship's dinner bells began chiming across the various decks, calling passengers to evening service. Through the dining room windows below, I could see white uniformed waiters lighting candles on tables set with gleaming crystal and silver. Lily hugged me fiercely. "Promise me you won't drink anything they give you. Promise me you'll be careful." "I promise, sweetheart. Now go to the kids' club and try to have fun. This will all be over soon." As she hurried away toward the ship's activity center, I remained standing at the deck railing, watching the dining rooms fill with families enjoying their vacation. Somewhere below, Derek and Evelyn were preparing to join me for what they believed would be my last meal. My hands gripped the railing as the full weight of betrayal settled over me. The son I'd raised, supported and loved unconditionally, had decided I was worth more dead than alive. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd underestimated a 10-year-old's courage and a grandfather's determination to protect her. 90 minutes had passed since Lily's warning, and I sat alone at a corner table in the ship's elegant bar, pretending to study the dinner menu, while my eyes tracked every movement around me. The Ocean View Lounge buzzed with pre-dinner cocktails and civilized conversation, crystal glasses catching the soft amber lighting. I'd positioned myself strategically, back to the wall, clear view of all entrances, close enough to the bar to hear orders but far enough away to avoid seeming paranoid. My phone lay beside the menu, voice recorder app ready, though the screen appeared dark. "Frank!" Derek's voice boomed across the lounge with false heartiness. "There you are, Dad. We've been looking everywhere." They approached with practiced smiles, Derek in his best vacation shirt, Evelyn in a flowing sundress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. But I could see the calculation behind their eyes now, the predatory assessment I'd been blind to for years. Mind if we join you? Evelyn slid into the chair across from me without waiting for an answer. We thought it would be nice to have drinks together before dinner, like a proper family vacation. Absolutely. Derek signaled the bartender with an authoritative wave. 3 martinis, please. Grey Goose, extra dry, just like my dad always orders. The bartender nodded and began preparing the drinks, but something in Derek's tone made my skin crawl. Too specific. Too insistent. I'd never been particular about vodka brands, and Derek knew it. Actually, I said casually, closing the menu, I'm feeling a bit queasy from the ship's motion today. Think I'll skip alcohol and stick to ginger ale. Derek's smile faltered for just a fraction of a second. Come on, Dad. 1 martini won't hurt. We're celebrating our family time together. The last family time we might have, Evelyn added with what she probably thought was meaningful sentiment. Who knows when we'll all be together like this again? The irony of her words would have been darkly amusing if the situation weren't so terrifying. She was right. This might indeed be our last time together, but not for the reasons she was pretending. Thanks, but my stomach's been bothering me since lunch. I gestured toward my midsection apologetically. Sea legs aren't what they used to be at my age. You two go ahead and enjoy yourselves. Derek's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Dad, it's 1 drink, for family harmony. The pressure in his voice was unmistakable now. He needed me to drink that martini, needed it desperately enough to keep pushing despite my clear refusal. The realization that my son was trying to poison me hit me anew, though I kept my expression neutral. How about this instead? I stood up, pulling out my wallet. Dinner's on me tonight. Both of you order whatever you want, celebrate properly. I'm going to walk off this nausea and meet you in the dining room. Before they could protest further, I left enough cash on the table to cover their drinks and walked toward the lounge exit. Behind me, I heard Derek's frustrated sigh and Evelyn's sharp whisper. He's being difficult. I made it appear as though I was heading toward the elevators, but instead ducked into the corridor, leading to the guest cabin areas. Their interior stateroom was on deck 5, and the ship's layout made it easy to position myself near their door without being obvious. Through the thin walls, their voices carried clearly once they returned to their cabin 20 minutes later. He suspects something, Evelyn said, her voice sharp with frustration. Did you see how he refused the drink? He's never refused alcohol before. Maybe he really is feeling sick from the ship. Don't be naive, Derek. Your father's been sailing before. He doesn't get seasick. Something clinked against a table, probably a glass being set down hard. We'll have to be more direct. What do you mean? Tonight, during his usual deck walk, you know he always takes that stroll around 10 o'clock to look at the stars? The patrol shift changes at 9:30, just like we planned. 15 minutes with minimal security coverage. My hands shook slightly as I activated my phone's voice recorder, holding it close to the wall. Push him over? Derek's voice was barely audible. It's the only way now. Make it look like he slipped on the wet deck. Tragic accident. Elderly man loses his balance. The insurance will pay out, and we'll inherit everything within 6 months. I'd heard enough. More than enough. Back in my suite, I replayed the recording 3 times, each playback making the reality more horrifying. My son's voice discussing my murder with the same tone he might use to plan a grocery shopping trip. The life jacket hanging in my closet caught my eye as I paced the small sitting area. They thought they were hunting a helpless old man. They had no idea the old man was now hunting them. The harbor pilot boat guided us through the coral reefs surrounding Hamilton as I stood at the ship's rail, watching Bermuda's pink sand beaches and pastel houses grow larger. My escape bag sat hidden behind a life preserver rack, packed with essentials and the recorded evidence of my son's murder plot. 14 hours had passed since I'd learned the truth. 14 hours of sleepless planning, pacing my suite while Derek and Evelyn presumably slept peacefully in their cabin below, confident their victim remained unaware. The gangway lowered with mechanical precision as dock workers secured the massive ship to concrete pilings. Passengers began streaming toward the exits, chattering excitedly about shopping in Hamilton and swimming in crystal blue coves. I could be among them. Walk off this ship, catch a flight to New York, and file a police report from the safety of my own home. Let Derek and Evelyn explain to authorities why they'd planned my murder. My hand closed around the bag's strap. "Grandpa!" Lily's voice rang out across the deck as she ran toward me, already dressed for shore excursion in her bright yellow sundress and sandals. "Isn't it beautiful? Look at the water. It's like swimming in liquid jewels." Her excitement stopped me cold. Behind her I could see other passengers' children bouncing with anticipation, families preparing for a day of snorkeling and beach exploration. Normal families. Healthy families where grandparents didn't flee from murderous children. "Princess, I need to handle some business matters on shore." The lie tasted bitter. "Boring grown-up stuff. You go with your parents and have fun." Her face fell immediately. "But you promised we'd go snorkeling together. You said you'd show me how to find conch shells." "I know, sweetheart, but sometimes adult responsibilities—" "No!" The word exploded from her with surprising force. "Grandpa, please don't leave me alone with him. Please don't go." Something in her tone made me look at her more carefully. Fear. The same terror I'd seen yesterday when she'd warned me about the poison. "They'll hurt you if I'm not here to stop them," she whispered, grabbing my hand with both of hers. "And if you leave, who's going to protect me?" The question hit me like a physical blow. In my desperation to save myself, I'd forgotten the most important truth. Lily would remain trapped on this ship with two people who'd already proven they were capable of murder. People who might decide a 10-year-old witness was too dangerous to keep alive. My escape bag suddenly felt like a coward's solution. "You're right, Princess." I knelt down to her eye level. "I'm not going anywhere. We're in this together, remember? But what about the danger? What about what they're planning?" Sometimes the best way to handle bullies is to stand up to them instead of running away. I squeezed her hands gently, and sometimes grown-ups need to learn there are consequences for making bad choices. Derek and Evelyn emerged from the ship's interior, dressed for their own shore excursion. They spotted us near the gangway, and I saw them exchange a meaningful glance. Derek approached with his usual forced cheerfulness. "Not going ashore, Dad? Bermuda's supposed to be spectacular." "Changed my mind. Think I'll enjoy the ship's amenities while it's less crowded." Another glance between them. They were recalculating, adjusting their plans based on my unexpected decision to remain aboard. "Well, we're off to explore Hamilton," Evelyn announced brightly. "Should be back by 4 o'clock for departure." As they walked down the gangway toward shore, I watched through binoculars from the upper deck. They paused at the dock, heads close together in intense conversation, planning, strategizing, deciding how to handle their victim's unexpected behavior. "Mr. Miller?" A uniformed officer approached. Security Chief Michael Smith, according to his name tag. Mid-30s, alert eyes, the kind of competent authority figure I'd hoped to find. "I believe you wanted to speak with me about a security matter." I'd called down to ship security 20 minutes earlier, claiming concerns about passenger safety. Now, watching Derek and Evelyn disappear into Hamilton's busy streets, I felt the first stirrings of genuine confidence since this nightmare had begun. "Yes, Officer Smith, I have something very serious to discuss with you. Something involving threats to passenger safety from individuals who believe they can commit crimes at sea without consequences." The hunter was about to become the hunted, and Derek and Evelyn had no idea that their carefully planned murder was about to become their own trap. 2 hours after my decision to stay and fight, I walked with purpose toward the ship's bridge, my small voice recorder weighing heavy in my jacket pocket. The evidence of my son's murder plot would either save my life or make me look like a delusional old man. But watching Derek and Evelyn disappear into Hamilton's streets while I remained aboard had crystallized something inside me. I was done being a victim. "Captain Johnson?" I knocked on the private quarters adjacent to the bridge. "Frank Miller from Suite 8A. I need to discuss a serious passenger safety matter." The captain was a weathered man in his 50s, with the kind of steady gray eyes that had seen everything the ocean could throw at a ship. He gestured me toward a leather chair opposite his desk, clearly expecting some minor complaint about cabin service or meal quality. "What can I help you with, Mr. Miller?" I placed my phone on his desk and pressed play. Derek's recorded voice filled the small cabin. "Tonight on deck, push him over during late walk. The insurance will pay out, and will inherit everything within 6 months." Captain Johnson's expression transformed from polite attention to sharp focus. He listened to the entire recording twice, his jaw tightening with each repetition. "Mr. Miller, are you telling me your own son is planning to kill you on my ship?" "That's exactly what I'm telling you, and I have more evidence." I showed him the timestamps, explained Lily's initial warning, detailed the failed poisoning attempt. "They're going to try again tonight," during my usual deck walk. The captain leaned back in his chair, studying me carefully. "Why come to me instead of simply staying in your cabin, or leaving the ship in Bermuda?" "Because I have a 10-year-old granddaughter trapped with two people who've already proven they're willing to commit murder. If I run, what happens to her when they realize she overheard their plans?" Something in my voice must have convinced him. He reached for his radio. "Security to Captain's quarters. Officer Smith, Priority 1. Michael Smith arrived within 3 minutes, mid-30s, alert, with the bearing of someone who took passenger safety seriously. Captain Johnson played the recording again while I explained the situation in detail. "Sir, this is attempted murder conspiracy," Officer Smith said grimly. "We should contact authorities immediately." "No." The word came out sharper than I intended. "If you arrest them now, Lily loses her parents. She's 10 years old. She needs them, even if they're—" I couldn't finish the sentence. "Then what do you propose?" the captain asked. "Tonight, as I take my usual walk on the upper deck at 11:30, they'll come for me just like they planned. But this time, you'll be ready." Officer Smith frowned. "Mr. Miller, you're asking us to use you as bait. That's extremely dangerous." "I'm 68 years old, officer. I can't outrun them or overpower them, but I can outsmart them." I met his gaze steadily. "With your backup, we can catch them in the act and end this without destroying my granddaughter's life." We spent the next hour planning every detail: communication signals, positioning, backup procedures. Officer Smith would be concealed nearby with 2 additional security personnel, emergency whistle in my pocket, hand signals if I needed immediate intervention. "What about the little girl during all this?" Officer Smith asked. "She'll be safe in the kids' movie night until midnight. She won't even know what's happening." As the meeting concluded, Captain Johnson stood and shook my hand. "Mr. Miller, I've been at sea for 30 years. I've seen family disputes, financial desperation, even violence, but I've never seen a father show this much courage to protect his granddaughter while giving his son a chance to choose differently. Sometimes being a father means making impossible choices." Back in my suite that evening, I sat at the small desk and wrote a letter to Lily, just in case something went wrong tonight. Instructions for reaching my lawyer, accessing college funds I'd set aside for her, knowing that she'd be provided for no matter what happened to me. The sun was setting over the Atlantic, painting the water in shades of gold and crimson. In 6 hours I would either be dead at the bottom of the ocean or watching my son get arrested for attempted murder. I sealed the letter in an envelope marked "For Lily" and tucked it into the desk drawer. At 11:25 p.m. I stood at my cabin mirror, checking my appearance one final time. Gray hair combed, cardigan buttoned, the picture of a harmless old man taking a contemplative evening stroll. The emergency whistle felt cold against my palm as I slipped it into my pocket and headed for the upper deck. The upper deck stretched empty under starlight, ocean waves lapping against the ship's hull, 15 stories below. I positioned myself at the predetermined spot along the starboard rail, hands clasped behind my back like an elderly gentleman contemplating the infinite darkness of the Atlantic. To any observer, I appeared completely alone and vulnerable. But Officer Smith waited in the shadows near the lifeboat station, with 2 additional security personnel positioned at strategic points around the deck. My emergency whistle pressed warm against my palm, ready to signal the moment things went wrong. "Dad?" Derek's voice emerged from the darkness behind me, artificially concerned. "What are you doing out here so late?" I turned slowly, unsurprised to find both Derek and Evelyn approaching from the deck entrance. They'd dressed in dark clothing, black pants, navy windbreakers that would be nearly invisible against the night sky. "Couldn't sleep," I replied calmly. "Sometimes the ocean helps clear my mind." "You should be more careful walking alone at night," Evelyn added, moving to position herself between me and the deck entrance. "The rails can be slippery with sea spray." "Especially for someone your age," Derek said, stepping closer. "Balance isn't what it used to be, is it?" They were flanking me now, one on each side, gradually backing me toward the ship's rail. The choreography was smooth, practiced. They'd clearly rehearsed this moment. Actually, my balance is fine. I straightened to my full height, meeting Derek's eyes directly. Just like my hearing was fine yesterday when I overheard your conversation about pushing me overboard. Derek's face went white in the starlight. What are you talking about? I know everything, son. The poison in the martini that didn't work. The plan to make my death look accidental. The inheritance you're so desperate to claim. My voice stayed steady despite my racing heart. I even know about the 15-minute window when security patrol changes shifts. You're delusional, Evelyn snapped, but her eyes darted nervously around the empty deck. We came up here because we were worried about you. Evelyn moved to block my other escape route while Derek tried to force me backward toward the rail. His grip was strong, fueled by desperation and 42 years of resentment, but I'd been preparing for this moment all day. The emergency whistle shrieked across the deck as I pressed it to my lips with my free hand. The sound cut through the ocean night like a siren, echoing off the ship's superstructure. "Security! Security!" I shouted as Derek wrestled for control of my arm. "Shut up!" Derek hissed, trying to clamp his hand over my mouth while pushing me toward the rail. "Nobody's coming to help you." That's when Officer Smith stepped out of the shadows. "Step away from Mr. Miller immediately." 2 additional security officers appeared from opposite sides of the deck, their flashlights cutting through the darkness like laser beams. Derek released my arm so quickly I almost stumbled. "This isn't what it looks like," Evelyn said quickly, raising her hands. "We were just trying to help him get back inside safely. By forcing him toward the ship's rail?" Officer Smith's voice was professionally calm but deadly serious. "Turn around and put your hands behind your backs." "This is entrapment," Derek protested as the handcuffs clicked around his wrists. "We weren't doing anything illegal." "Conspiracy to commit murder, attempted assault, and endangering passenger safety," Officer Smith recited. "Mr. Miller, are you injured?" I caught my breath against the deck rail, adrenaline making my hands shake. "No, just grateful you were nearby." "Wait until the media hears about this," Evelyn spat as her own handcuffs were applied. "An old man tricking his family, using his own granddaughter to—" "Enough!" My voice cut through her protests with quiet authority. "You tried to kill me for money. Lily saved my life because she loves me. The only trick here was believing you still had souls worth saving." As the security officers led them away, Derek looked back at me one final time. "This isn't over, Dad. Money changes everything. You'll see." But standing alone on the deck afterward, watching the stars reflect on the endless ocean, I realized he was wrong. Money hadn't changed anything that really mattered. 45 minutes after the arrests, I sat in the ship's security office giving my formal statement, while Derek and Evelyn were processed in the adjacent holding area. Through the thin wall, I could hear Derek's angry protests, alternating with Evelyn's calculating attempts to negotiate their way out of consequences. "Mr. Miller," Officer Smith looked up from his report, "will need to contact authorities at our next port. Nassau Police will want to interview everyone involved." "No." The word surprised even me with its finality. "Sir?" I thought about Lily, asleep in her bunk bed, innocent of the knowledge that her parents had tried to commit murder. "Officer Smith, what would happen to my granddaughter if her parents are arrested and imprisoned?" "She'd likely be placed in protective services until family arrangements could be made." "She's 10 years old. She's been through enough trauma without losing her parents to prison." I leaned forward in my chair. "What alternatives do we have?" Officer Smith frowned. "Captain Johnson has authority to confine passengers to quarters for the remainder of the voyage, but attempted murder is a serious crime, Mr. Miller." "They failed. I'm alive and unharmed. Sometimes justice is about prevention rather than punishment." From the holding area came Derek's voice. "This is all lies. We never tried to hurt anyone. That old man is manipulating everyone." Officer Smith looked at me questioningly. "Are you certain about this decision?" "Officer, I've spent 40 years in business negotiations. Sometimes you win by destroying your opponent. Sometimes you win by making sure they can never threaten you again." I stood up slowly, feeling every one of my 68 years. Confine them to their cabin for the rest of the cruise. Ban them from any shared spaces. I just want to enjoy 3 more days with my granddaughter before we return to port. And after the cruise? After the cruise, they'll have some very serious decisions to make about their future, with or without me in it. The next morning brought crystalline Caribbean waters and sunshine streaming through my suite windows. I found Lily at the Kids Club breakfast buffet, chattering excitedly with new friends about the day's planned activities. "Grandpa!" She ran to hug me, her face bright with 10-year-old joy. "Can we go snorkeling today? The activity director says the reef here has parrotfish." "Absolutely, Princess. Just you and me today." "What about Mom and Dad? Are they still feeling sick?" I knelt down to her eye level, choosing my words carefully. "They need to rest in their cabin for a few days. Doctor's orders. But that means we get extra adventure time together." Her face lit up with the pure happiness that only children can feel about unexpected treats. Just us? Really? Just us. The remaining 3 days of our cruise became exactly what I'd hoped for when this journey began. Precious time with my granddaughter, watching her discover the wonders of tropical fish and coral gardens, teaching her to play shuffleboard on the ship's deck, reading together in the library while ocean waves rolled endlessly past the windows. Derek and Evelyn remained confined to their interior cabin, meals delivered by room service, isolated from the joy and beauty surrounding them. Occasionally I'd glimpse them through their porthole window, Derek pacing angrily while Evelyn stared at her phone, probably calculating their dwindling options. On our final morning, as Manhattan's skyline appeared on the horizon, Lily and I stood at the ship's rail, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of coral and gold. "Grandpa, this was the best vacation ever," she said, leaning against my side. "Even better than I imagined." "For me too, sweetheart. For me too." I felt the emergency whistle still in my pocket, a reminder of how close we'd come to losing everything. But we hadn't lost. We'd won. Not through revenge or destruction, but through protection of what mattered most. As the ship docked in Manhattan and passengers began gathering their luggage, I kept one hand on Lily's shoulder and one eye on the security officers escorting Derek and Evelyn to a separate exit. They'd face their own consequences in their own time. But the little girl beside me would grow up knowing her grandfather had chosen love over vengeance, mercy over justice, and family bonds over the bitter satisfaction of punishment. Sometimes the greatest victory is knowing when not to destroy your enemies, but simply to ensure they can never hurt the people you love. The sun was fully risen now, warming our faces as we headed toward whatever came next. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.